Welcome everybody to the Synapse Philosophy Group. We're starting Stephenson's senior text today. We're on the first page, page 230 of the senior text from Stephenson's textbook. And we're starting at the beginning. And I know we skipped around in there in the past, but what we're going to do is start from the beginning. Then we're going to go through the 33 principles again, where on the senior text, because it's in the freshman text as well. But now we're going to get in a little bit deeper. So I'm going to start at the beginning. Does anybody have any new news or anything that they want to talk about to start off with? Well, then we're going to get rocking and rolling right now. The senior text is an elaboration of the principles of chiropractic, an advanced work in theory and practical phases. The Article 304 dates, the history of chiropractic is really the history of adjustments. Quotation from volume 4, although chiropractic was not named until 1896, yet the naming of chiropractic was much like the naming of a baby. It was 9 months old before it was named. Chiropractic in the beginning of the thoughts upon which it was named dates back to at least 5 years previous to 1895. During those 5 years, as I review many of these writings, I find they talk about various phases of that which now constitutes some of the phases of our present-day philosophy, showing that showing that that doesn't make sense, was thinking along. My father was thinking along and towards those lines, which eventually and suddenly crystallized into the accidental case of Harvey Lillard, after which it sprung suddenly into fire and produced that white-hot blaze. Now I'm going to stop there because the accidental I want to touch on for a moment. Did you guys catch that? Anybody have any thoughts on that? You're blocked out there, Steve. I can't hear you. That's a dig from BJ, right? Because he's talking about volume 4. Okay, BJ still sort of digging on his dad. He published volume 1, of chiropractic philosophy, which was Dede's work. BJ did a few little things in there and then published it under his name and was taking credit because Dede said, I am not ready to publish that yet. And now Stephenson is quoting BJ about the sudden influence or sudden discovery, where Dede was talking about 9 years in the making of chiropractic and then delivering it to the world.
Wow.
To BJ. Difference in story, right? We read that in 1910. So there's a little conflict in here. What do you guys feel about that? Let's talk about some discussion here. You can't just have me. I'll talk this whole time, but it's not what it's all about. What do you guys feel? Who's 305 down here in the bottom corner? Does anybody know about that feud and all those types of things? Wasn't BJ until later on he started really saying, different things. Here it's still into that feud and that father-son, battle they were having. What do you think, Stephen?
Why would he call it an accidental?
Now, this is another story that I heard from Pasquale Sarasoli. And Pasquale, he would be 100 and something years old right now. And he was around not in the beginning, but, he learned from the guys that learned from Dede, which I think is really cool. He said he hit him on the back with a book, just saying, hey, hey, pal, whatever. And he felt something strange. It just didn't feel right. And that gave him the next intuition to feel the vertebra, the fourth dorsal, to adjust. That's a story you don't hear very often. Now,
yeah, but even that's not an accident. There are no accidents.
But he's still exactly right. But he still was researching for 9 years before he delivered that adjustment. It was no accident.
Right.
Exactly. All right, a little discussion. I don't know what happened to Alan. They should be here tonight too. We've got a couple other people that told me they're going to come in a little later. So that's really interesting, Steve. I'll keep reading since everybody's just doing their thing. As chiropractic grew, other important things useful in chiropractic were discovered. This is good. Palpation. Between 1898 and 1900, nerve tracing, 1905, the Merrick system, which we still use today, 1909, spinographs, 1910, B.J. Palmer, we know that, taut and tender fibers, which is still on most people's travel card, 1922, the neurocolometer, okay, I mean that's a Titron now, but the thermocouplings are still valid. That's 1924. Here's a note in parentheses. I heard BJ explain taut and tender fibers in 1920 in his classes, as if it were then old to him. But no one seemed to pay much attention to it until 1922, when he began to emphasize it. In 1922 is the date usually mentioned. Okay, and that's from Stephenson. History of adjusting. This is article 305 on page 230. I prefer to quote BJ in Majors and Minors, page 7. In order to tell a history of adjustments, the first patient who received chiropractic adjustment was Harvey Lillard, a colored man. The incident, in brief, follows. He had been deaf for 17 years. So much so that from the 4th floor of the building where he was a janitor, he could not hear the wagons moving and the streetcars rolling on the streets below. When he asked how he became deaf, his explanation was as follows. While in a cramped stoop position, I felt and heard something pop in my back. Immediately I went deaf. To no one, to one who was observant, a student that would be an accidental eye-opener, and it was to D.D. Palmer who asked, what is the connection between the back and the hearing in the ears? He examined the back. By good fortune, the first case in which a spine was examined, with that thought in view, a large bump was found. It was not one of the common bumps to see today in palpation, but so prominent it could be seen with the eye. That's pretty amazing. The following, and this is in parentheses, the following consequential reasoning occurred. If there was no bump when the hearing was good and the production of the bump destroyed the hearing, why didn't the reduction of the bump restore hearing? The first attempt to correct it is now a subluxation, was then made. The patient was put upon the floor, face down, and a shoved-like movement was given. The bump was reduced by the first 3 shoves, and in the first 3 days, hearing was restored. Harvey could hear a watch tick at the average distance you and I could today. That's cool. Now, Dee, I don't know who he's quoting here. I got to read a little bit more, because Dee said rack the bone back in place. And I don't remember reading where it said 3 times. Okay, if the question is, the reduction of the bump in one man restores hearing, why won't a similar bump in another man and in other people produce deafness? And if it does, why wouldn't the reproduction of these bumps in the same way restore their hearing? It was tried on others. By a peculiar series of circumstances, the results did not come as readily in their cases, but eventually they did come. They came, it says. Then the third question arose. If a bump in the back caused deafness, why not other parts of the spine produce other diseases? So our question was gradually enlarged until systematic series of investigations covering years, you have your chiropractic of today. Education advanced. After period, we ceased calling them bumps. They became dislocations. Now, I don't like that, truthfully. we at a later, and that's me saying that because I don't remember Dede in any of my readings call it a dislocation. It was less than a dislocation. It was a luxation, being a subluxation, less than a dislocation. We at a later time were impressed with the idea that this bump was not a dislocation. It was, in reality, not a dislocation, but partial, more assuming the character of a luxation, yet not a luxation. It was a subluxation. Okay, there we go. That explains it, right? Anybody? When we had assumed as a matter of education that breadth of ideals where they became subluxations, we no longer assumed to shove. We developed and pushed and pulled principles, which was of various forms and methods. We began at a following period to study the spine from a mechanical point of view. Until this time, the only people who attempted to study the spine as a machine were osteopaths, although pathologically they still regarded man as chemistry and physics. We confirmed our observations of mechanical ideas to the spine, so much so that we brought out the knowledge of the kinematics of the spine, both normal and abnormal, as to position and apposition and subluxation. We then began the study of the pathological, traumatic, and anomalous conditions of the spine. At the time began the gathering of the osteological collection, which we now possess, for the purpose of elucidating the theories that held the propagation of others. All right. Anybody have any input at all?
You know, the large bump that could be visibly seen. I think that, you know how, let's say you buy a Volkswagen Bug, it's a new car for you, and all of a sudden you see a bunch of, I think that was providence. And I think the perception from Innate downloaded this and made it larger because, you know, what's the deal with seeing that bump? I believe it was providence. Maybe there was no bump, but from the seer's eye, it was large.
And
possibly.
Steve, I think you're right on target. And part of what I'm teaching in Innate Baby and Innate Adjusting is how we create that consciousness of where is that subluxation we're drawn to it. How do we become more drawn to it? And you've been in practice for, a very long time. And you come to a point where you can see them a mile away. BJ even said it in his later books. I see subluxations everywhere I go. And when we really start, when we're seasoned in this service, we don't have to find them, they find us, right? And when you said that, Steve, Innate said, adjust me here, this is the time. I gave you that spiritual inspiration, right? And you got that message of chiropractic, deliver it right here. Innate said it just like you did. Fernando from Mexico, good to see you. You have some insights for you? You want us to clear up anything? How's it going?
Everything's good, thanks.
Awesome.
But I think it's a very strong idea, because when you get to school, you need to learn how to make the palpation, how to find the subluxation. And this is very, I mean, it's kind of difficult, but also is difficult to practice.
I think you're right on target. And that's where a lot of chiropractors, people use the term manipulation, but that is for where we're adjusting, moving the bone where there's not a subluxation, people talk about. Because very often people are crunching things, they're not getting to that one subluxation. And it could be 2, 3, maybe, some people say. But finding that the one that's causing nerve interference, because you can have fixations that are not affecting the nerve. The subluxation has the nerve component. That's the important thing. We can't find a subluxation on x-ray. Any Gonstead person will say that. That's why they use the nervoscope or what have you. That's where you know there's a nerve interference. You know, you'll see the dial go, right? Or you'll see it in a Titron. So I think you're right on target about that. That's really great. All right, we got my man Miguel Toro joining us right now. So this is what we're going to work on next time I come to Mexico, okay? We're going to work on finding that subluxation, allowing innate to guide us to it. That is the part where we give up our educated, right? And that's the hardest part, really, because we spend a lot of time in here in La Cabeza and thinking, I know. But the more we know, we realize we don't know. I always have said that. So when we get that freedom and we're going purely innately, right? Then that spirit guides us. Awesome. Thank you. Miguel, my man, how's it going down there? Miami is in the house.
Doing great, Haig. Doing great.
Awesome. I am so glad to see you. So we're on Stephenson's textbook. We're in the senior text, okay? If you have it, we're right at the bottom of page 232. And I'm going to continue reading unless anybody has anything else. And I just want to give you guys a heads up too. This one specifically, we're going to have subtitles. We're going to translate into Spanish and into Portuguese, okay? All right. When we study the spine, mechanically speaking, we realize that treatment, in parentheses, was far-fetched in its application. As describing the thing we attempted to do, being a machine, being mechanically adjusted, then came the word adjustment. Approximately 6 years ago, we began a series of clinical tests or investigations of the new viewpoint. I refer to the spinograph. Now, you realize this is BJ. He's taking this from volume 4, where BJ was just really starting his work. Didi had already done this, and he was working in a spiritual way. BJ is very mechanical in the very beginning, and they're talking about how mechanical this is, even saying so. That's why I feel it took chiropractic, needed to go through that stuff.
Okay, I've got a question about some specificity here in the subluxation.
Go ahead.
I'm thinking about the story of Jesus. He's walking through the crowd, and some woman touches his robe, and he says, somebody just got healed. I believe that what happened is that person touched the robe and their subluxation was removed.
You know, Sigafus used to say Jesus was the first chiropractor and he had 12 associates. Absolutely. What is a subluxation except innate talking, right? Adjust me here, help me this way. You're listening to spirit when you were connecting to that subluxation. Under the light, under the expression of the light, not less light. You can't be less God at any point. You're 100% God. There's no diminishing that. Under means a heck of a lot more than less than in my world. Once we get out of that lack consciousness as chiropractors, that's when we're truly going to grow and truly get into a spiritual consciousness as chiropractors.
Well, I don't really want to push a non-specific crack 'em and rack 'em, but I am saying that specificity is an innate function of the patient's body. We do what we do, but the specificity is provided by innate.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, who does the adjusting? You know, BJ said it, Didi said it. You know, we offer a force, takes it the way it wants it to do it, and then spirit adjusts you. Your innate intelligence brings the bone back into where it truly needs to be. And they all said it many times, no matter how, you know, from volume 18 or whatever it is, we don't do the adjusting. Your innate does that adjusting.
Right.
Sigafus used to say, I move the bone, God does the healing. I'm going to back away. It's an inside job. I can't heal you. which also means I truly can't adjust you. Your body still has to do the work.
And the adjustment is made when my pisiform leaves the spine.
Yeah, because you're okay. I'm stepping away, right? But maybe does it really begin when, have you ever had anybody, I'm calling you, my back has really been bothering me until like today when I decided to call you. But, does it come from that consciousness even? The body start making that shift.
There you go.
It's power in words. There's power. I mean, the things we think, say, or do. He said, think first, right? Thoughts are things. Thoughts are things. Pasquale used to say that all the time. Thoughts are things. Be careful what you wish for. That's powerful. And, getting that into our consciousness early in chiropractic, I think is tremendous. Let's see. I'm going to read Miguel's here. They start healing when they enter the field, when they walk into the waiting room. Absolutely. Our field of energy is powerful. If we're thinking in I got to pay my bills, I got to fight my wife or my girlfriend, or the last patient, tweaked me in some way, then they're also walking into that field. That's why our clarity is so important.
Right on.
Thank you for that, Miguel. Excellent. And now this is your first time on, Miguel. I think you've come on before, but this is an open discussion. Everyone has an opportunity to talk. So it's not the Haig show.
I appreciate it. Yeah, first time on here, and I want to do some more reading. I haven't read enough of the books, and I want to get back into it. I know it's probably the one thing that's lacking. Everything else is great, but I feel like so focused on the practice that you kind of ignore some of the basics, and these are the basics.
Amen, brother. That's called slipping and checking, right? We're slipping and checking, and we all slip like that. And what happens is we get focused on that one thing, opening the doors, taking care of the people, taking care of our family, and then we got to fit ourselves in some of that stuff. But this is the spiritual food, right? The spiritual food. And so that's what we do. I mean, we read these passages and we talk about them. How does it affect us? What does that mean into the service of the people, right? Because that's what it's all about. It's not really me being a chiropractor or you. It's caring for the people. The people are the ones that matter the most, right? Awesome. Thank you for that, Miguel. I need to come down to Miami, get adjusted, my man. We got to come down soon. I miss you. All right. Here we go. It is no longer sufficient to say that we adjust with the recoil. Oh. We are ready for our next step, which you may call, this is from 206, also, I prefer the toggle recoil because of its application of the new series of observations made from the spinographic facts. That's pretty good. History is his story. The his is, in this case, being the author who has lived it, been the cause of the large majority of it. Therefore, the source of the facts here recorded could not be improved. That's from B.J. Palmer. And, that is powerful stuff, where we're reading his story, history, right? The recoil being, I think, the most important part of the toggle. I had a great friend of mine who adjusts me an inch off of my skin, okay? And I've had some of the greatest adjustments from that. I've learned how to do that now, and I teach it. And he toggled me. He was learning to do toggle again, and he toggle and hold for a moment. And I tell you, it's like one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever experienced. It's that recoil is the Sigafus used to say, it was like sucking it back up. So yeah, I agree. The toggle recoil, I'm doing a lot more toggle in my practice these days, which it just, I can serve more, but I'm more focused on that specificity. Absolutely. All right. So we've gone through all the way to page 233. That was my plan to stop there, okay? Well, actually, I went up to, 233. So that was my plan to stop because A, it was 33, and it's a very chiropractic number. How are you guys feeling tonight? What do you need to work on? Where are we on this right now?
I learned this.
What's that?
When you go slow, you're moving the one above and below. See this?
Yeah.
Whoa. It's a shear effect.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do like this, bam. And when you look at a slow motion of a hammer hitting a nail, it recoils off it. And then the nail goes in.
Yeah.
So speed, we used to practice on speeders. And now we have instruments that can tell you actually how fast and how deep to improve your toggle.
Yeah. I think Dwayne sells those. The Titron has something like that.
That's right.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like
Depth and speed.
Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Adjustment simulator.
What's it called?
It's called the adjustment simulator.
Adjustment simulator. Oh yeah.
Speed force over time. It doesn't do torque yet.
That's really cool. I like that. I've messed around with it, and that's a lot of fun. It's a lot easier than spinning an egg. A lot neater too if you use an unboiled egg. All right. So, where are you guys? How's everybody feeling? Practice, we're coming into the summer. We've got people graduating. We've got people, getting back to school, all these different things. And in practice, how's everybody feel with where you're going? Anybody need any clarity? I need clarity myself. We've had some ups and downs in practice. And just like Miguel said, getting back into this philosophy, I feel is one of the most important things a chiropractor can do. And in the old days, which is not that long ago, the first thing a chiropractor would tell you, are you reading a green book passage every day? I'm plateauing a little bit in practice, or I'm feeling a little bit of slump. Just a passage. You can read one sentence. That's the first place to start. Go ahead, Steve.
We live in a world where we're constantly, repeatedly told that the answer is outside in. And just because when something is repeatedly repeated, it makes belief stronger, but not the truth stronger. And I in myself have to notice repetitive lies and then look at it and change it with a green book or a spiritual book or the Bible, whatever, because we are being lied to on a repetitive level. And that doesn't make it any more true. It does make it more believable. But beliefs and truths are two different things. So that's why we chiropractors have to reflect to each other the truth.
Amen, brother. I mean, those are powerful statements right there. That's why we band together. We have meetings together. We do this together because this brotherhood and sisterhood is extremely important because, I tell you, this is the 1%. There is nobody doing this anywhere else in the country or the world every Tuesday night or any night. This is the 1%. And I'm doing this as much for you, but I'm also doing this for me because I need to do it. Absolutely. Because getting dipped in this philosophy, it's easy to get pulled out of it. It's easy to be stuck in a town or a place where you're bombarded everywhere from the communication is opposite of chiropractic. Everywhere we go on this planet, it's up to us to be vigilant. And, people depend on us. That's what leadership is. It's what leadership is. The people also depend on other people, like the news. They see, the news anchor as being the leader, and he says, right? Because he wouldn't be on TV if he wasn't telling me the truth. But ultimately, what you are and I am, we have to lead our people. And that's why I call them people, because they are our people. And they're person. You're a mother, you're a wife, you're a husband, you're a son, you're a father. And we're not patients. We're not even, I don't even use the word practice member anymore, but we're ultimately people. And, you know, we need to stand strong with groups of leaders like all of you, so we can go back and tend to our flock. Let's put it that way, because I think that's important. You know, we have our shepherd's crook, which is our philosophy, right? And our knowing. Miguel, when your son was born, did you adjust him? Of course you did. Of course you did. I know Miguel very well. I know you adjusted your son. And I would want every single human being to adjust their child, or as fast as they can to adjust their child in a chiropractic office. This past couple of months, I've had people come in. Oh yeah, my son was born at 7:15 this morning. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They would have been here earlier, but I was at lunch, and they brought their baby in the same day to get adjusted because they knew, right?
Do you have any infants that don't need to be adjusted?
I have.
Good.
You know, they were clear. You know, it's few. I'll be honest with that. But very often I see they're a subluxation and they need to be adjusted. And, but I have absolutely. Very often now I'm seeing more and more difficult births, you know, people coming into me, the end, you know, 39 weeks, and they want to get adjusted because their child is breech and they're threatening a C-section. That C-section baby needs an adjustment. You know, if you don't find a subluxation that day, it may show up 2 to 3 days later, you know, if I'm seeing them that first day. But yeah, absolutely. If everyone knew that, they would do it. If they knew what we knew, they would do what we do. Simple as that, right? All right. Anybody else? Anybody have any input? Something else? This was life-changing stuff that we do here. Everything you do, you realize we become complacent in it. The things that we say, think, or do, we start seeing, yeah, you're all right. Oh, yeah, your GERD went away. Oh, yeah, that's good. It's just a miracle. Things changed. Our philosophy, I've been reading it since the beginning of chiropractic school, and I'm seeing it with new eyes every day. So this is powerful stuff. I'm so grateful to have all of you. And let's all participate more next time, okay? Fernando, do you have a last closing bit? Because you just popped on. All right. All right, my friends. I love and appreciate you all, okay? And invite your friends. Let's get this together. We're all a team here. We're serving chiropractic, and we are changing the world now. Not tomorrow, because it never comes. It is now, okay? God bless you all. Keep serving. I love and appreciate you.